Alright guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I will teach you how to build a NestJS REST API using SQLite. In this video, I'll be building a to-do application to teach you how to create basic CRUD operations in a NestJS application. Now, without much delay, let's get started. On my VS Code terminal, I'm going to install the NestJS CLI globally using the command npm install -g nest/cli. So I have NestJS already installed, so I'm going to create this command and scaffold a NestJS project using the nest new command, then followed by the name of the application. So this command now will generate the basic folder structure for application and then prompt us to choose the package manager to run this application. So I'm going to choose npm and then continue right after the installation is completed. So now we use the npm run dev command to start our application. So this will take a little bit of time to. Okay, so as you can see, our application has started running on port 3000. So you can see that NestJS has some basic routes created for us already. So now since our application is now running, let's go ahead and create a to-do module to contain our CRUD operation. To do that, we need to quit the server using Ctrl+C, and then we have to create the to-do module using the nest generate command, spell generate module. So this command will generate another folder inside our src directory. So and then register the module that we just created in our main module file. So let's create our to-do service using the nest generate service. Then we want our service to be inside our to-do module folder. So then inside a service folder and to create a to-do module. So to prevent NestJS from creating an additional folder for our module, we need to append the flag at the end of the command. So let's see. So as you can see, we have a service folder generated for us, and also we have a to-do.service file also created where we will create all our CRUD operation for our to-do application. So next, we need to also create a controller where we will create and configure all our API routes. So to do that, we also need to use the nest generate command. So this time we are creating a controller. So that's also be inside the to-do module folder, and then inside the controller folder, then to do. We also add a flag also to prevent Nest from creating an additional folder. We have an error. Okay, we misspelled something in our generate. So this is generate. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, we also have a to-do.controller folder created for us. Now let's go ahead and install ToDo and then the SQLite module to be able to connect our application to an SQLite database. To do that, we're going to use the command npm install at nestjs /typeorm then we'll install the SQLite 3 module. So I'll continue this tutorial right after the installation is completed. Our modules have successfully been installed. Now let's go ahead and configure our SQLite database in our main app module. So to do that, we need to import ToDo module. Okay, yeah. So in our array of imports, we'll use the type ORM for root method to configure our database credentials. So we specify the type of database we are using. So we are using SQLite database, SQLite, the database itself. So we'll call this ToDo DB, and then the location of our entities. So this is an array. So entity. So our entity could be a .ts or a .js file. Lastly, we need to also set our synchronize to true. Okay, so at this point, our SQL database has successfully been configured. Now, let's go ahead and create our to-do entities. So to create our to-do entity, we'll go over to the to-do module and create a to-do.entity.ts file. So we need to import the decorators. So we need entity. We need a primary generated column for our primary key. We need a created date column, and lastly we need updated date column. So we're importing this from type ORM. So okay, this is column. Okay, sorry, this creates an update. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead now and create our entity. So we've created a class for our to-do entity. So now let's define the properties of our entity. So first of all, we'll define the primary key. So which is going to be of type number. Next, we'll define the name. So our to-do name will be of type string. Not string. Okay, so we define the completed property. So by default, the completed should be set to false since it's going to be a boolean. Okay, so this is completed. Yeah. Okay, next we need to create the created add dates and then the updated add date. So I will use the create date column. So it should be created ads. So it's going to be of type dates, and then lastly update create column. So it's going to be updated at also accepting the dates. Okay, so our to-do model has been created. Now let's go ahead and create our CRUD operations to add data to our to-do entity data. To add data to our to-do entity. So now go back to the to-do main module and import our to-do class. So also need to bring in our imports. Also we need the type ORM module here. So NestJS /type ORM. So in our export, so we use the type ORM module dot for feature method to make our to-do model available. So that we can be able to use our to-do module in all our to-do module files. So now let's go ahead and create our CRUD operations. So inside the service folder, import inject repository. Also we need to import repository, and lastly we need to import our to-do's entity class. Okay, so in our to-do service, we're going to create a constructor method. Use the inject model to provide additional functionality. So in our to-do service, we'll create a constructor method, and inside our constructor method, we are going to use the inject repository decorator to provide a method that can allow us to create data, update and delete data from our to-dos table. So passing our to-do. Also, I will create a to-do repository variable that will enable us to have access to our to-do entity class. So to do that, to repository. So type repository, and I'll pass on our to do. Yeah, so our constructor method is done. Now let's get another method to get all the to-dos in our database. So get all. This method is going to return a promise. So I'm going to return a promise that contains an array of to-do. Alright, so I'm going to return with to-do repository dot find. Okay, so since we're using that wait, we need to turn this to an async function. This is this. Okay, so let's go ahead and also create another method to get a to-do. Okay, before that, I think let's create the create method. Sorry, the create method. So the create method is going to take a to do, which is going to be of type to do, and it's going to also return a promise of a to do, and we're going to return await dot create, and we're creating it to do. Okay, so now let's create the get one endpoint, which we take to do id as a parameter, so and also return promise of a to do. So we're going to say return use the find one method and passing the id. Okay. Okay, so in type ORM, we're also going to import another method known as update results and delete results. Okay, so these methods now will enable us to get the results of the operation whenever a record is updated or whenever a record is deleted from our table. So we're going to use that here. So we're going to say async updates. So we're going to update an ID. So it's going to return a promise of update results. Okay. We're going to return. Also, we also need to do updating here. So yeah. So we're going to say await. So dot updates and pass the ID of the to do to be updated and the to do we are updating. Okay, lastly we are going to create the delete method. Okay, so delete also takes in the ID and returns the promise of delete results. We are returning dot delete, then passing the ID. So now let's go to our to-do controller and configure our API routes. So before that, we need to import the decorators I will be needing. So we need to get decorator post ram. We also need put and finally we'll need delete. Okay, so I'll also need to inject our to-do service in our to-do controller. So we need to import it here. So to-do service. Into the service. Okay, so we need to destructure this. Alright, so we also need to import the to do entity class. So it's structured. So yeah. So now let's create a constructor method. So and then here we'll inject our to-do service. To-do service. Alright, so our constructor method is set. Now let's go ahead and then start defining our API routes. So I will start with the get all route. So we use the get method. So and it should be an async function. So get all. So the get all returns a promise of this you have to do. So we are going to return weight of to-do service. Sorry, should be an instance. So dot get all. Okay, so with that set, let's create endpoints. So create route, sorry. So create. So this takes a to do. We're going to get to do from the body. So to do. So which source type to do, and also this returns a promise of to do. So inside our function, we are going to return a weight of to do is equal to and call this create method. So passing that. So what's the error? Okay, this is to do service. Alright. Endpoints, routes, so our delete routes should also be an async function. So we should also get the ID from the request arm, and okay, so we also need to import we need to go here and get the update results and then the delete results. Okay, from typo rm. So let's just get it from here, and so yeah. So this should return promise of delete results. Okay, so we're going to return an await of this to do delete and pass the ID to do. Okay, before here we need to create the updates routes. So we're gonna use put the corrector and so updates, and so do the same here. I'm just gonna copy and paste this over here. Okay, so we're changing this to update results. So here we return a bit of yeah. Okay, what's the error? Okay, we also need to do from the body. Okay, so 32 and 6 to do. Okay, so we're going to do so our API routes has been successfully configured. So now let's go ahead and run our application to test them out. So to do that, I'll use the npm run start dev. So to see if we have any error. Okay, yeah. So I just discovered we didn't specify yeah, we didn't specify our URL pattern for the get one and put and delete. So since we are deleting by the ID, so we need to take the ID from the user. So we are getting the ID and we are also getting the ID and we're also getting the ID too here. So everything should work as expected. Yeah, so as you can see, we have our endpoints created here for us. So let's test them out using Insomnia. So yeah, I'm going to say localhost for 3000. So let's test the get route to do. So let's see. So as you can see, our application is working as expected. So we don't have any to do yet. So let's create a to do. So to do has passing a name. So here we're going to say write more code. So I'm going to submit this. Okay, sorry, this was not created. This is because we're using create instead of save here. So this is to be save, and so okay. So let's test this out again. So our to do has been created successfully. So as you can see, we have the ID generated for us, the name of the to do, and the date created and the updated date. So yeah, that works. So now let's test our get routes to get all the to do's. So yeah, now let's check get a to do. Okay, let's create another to do so we can be able to see the effects when we try to get one particular to do. So let's say right drink a cup of coffee. Okay, so it should be a post request, and yeah, so let's try getting the second to do. Okay, getting an error. Okay, this should be a get request. So as you can see, can get to do by its ID. Yes, so this works. So let's try deleting it to do. Let's delete the first to do. So as you can see, our to do has been deleted. So if you go back to the get route and try to get all the to do, so you should see that to do has been deleted. Finally, let's test the boot. So let's update this account and change this to what the hell is this? So change this to green coffee 33 something. So yeah, so as you can see, so let's go back to the get. Yeah, so let's see. So we're having now get drink coffee 33. So our application is working successfully.